My name is Charlie McGrath, founder of WideAwakeNews.com, host on the Rinse Radio Network, and co-founder of Doomcast. Mr. Rasmussen, who happens to be the Secretary General of NATO, is going to work very hard in the upcoming week in Cardiff, Wales, in order to convince the 28 nations that make up this military bloc. He's going to try to overcome their doubts in placing military bases even closer to the former Soviet Union, to the current Russia. You have NATO pushing hard for Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia to be home to military forces of NATO because of the impending threat that we face by Russia, even though Russia isn't destabilizing regions of the world anywhere near to the effect that NATO has been, the United States has been. We are now building a Cold War stringent policy against Russia, going to put military forces right directly on their borders. Now, why is this? We're told it's because of the aggression of Russia. And so far to date, the only thing we've seen that is truly provable going into eastern Ukraine from Russia is a convoy of nearly 300 vehicles. But if we look a little of relief aid, if we look a little deeper into the reasons why we would be wanting to demonize Russia and get our hooks deep into Ukraine, we have to look no further than the recent report, Walking on the West Side, the IMF, the World Bank in in the Ukraine crisis. This report shows exactly why we are doing what we're doing, why this is being done in our name. You see, Ukraine had a deal with their elected government, a deal with Russia for $15 billion. The CIA, the West, they had absolutely no desire to let that come to pass. So they destabilized to the tune of 60 programs, quasi-government agency programs to destabilize the government in Ukraine, spend billions of your taxpayer dollars to end up where we're at right now, a civil war inside of Ukraine. Now, the new puppet regime, Poroshenko inside Ukraine, is more than happy to bend over for the West, signing a deal with the EU. But in this deal, some major changes are coming to Eastern Europe, and namely the people of Ukraine. Walking on the West Side, IMF, World Bank inside of Ukraine. With this agreement with the European Union, there's one little article, Article 404, that promises to extend biotechnologies inside of not only inside of Ukraine, but all of Eastern Europe. Now, Ukraine is known as it's the largest landmass nation inside of Europe. It's the largest country, and it's known as the breadbasket of Europe. And they have very strict rules about genetically modified food and genetically modified organisms. They do not allow it. You cannot plant genetically modified seeds inside of Ukraine. Why? Because they're not proven. There's not enough history behind them, and they don't want to be subservient to just a few, well, at least they didn't want to be subservient to just a few companies, corporations on this planet to provide them seeds to grow food for all of Europe. But inside of this EU deal, inside of this agreement, Article 404, it promises to extend the experimentation of biotechnologies inside of Ukraine. What does this really boil down to? Well, the people of Ukraine, regardless if they want GMOs or genetically modified seeds, they are not going to have a choice. They're going to be shoved down their throat by Monsanto. But don't worry about it, because Michael Cox of Piper Jaffray promises not only the Ukraine, but Eastern Europe has the most promising growth potential in the agricultural industry, including equipment from companies like John Deere and, of course, namely Monsanto. They will have their hooks in there. This is just part of the puzzle that we've seen unfold inside of Eastern Ukraine, inside of Eastern Europe. It is about the West getting their corporate special interest in control of these regions to dominate the resources of nations and to exploit these nations. We've seen it from the start of what's going on inside of Ukraine, when either if it's Joe Biden's son heading up a mining corporation or being the face man for a mining fracking procedures that are going to be going on inside of Ukraine. In fact, some reports have it going on now in the midst of a civil war. It doesn't matter that 2 million people have been displaced inside of eastern Ukraine, and just today a carload of people were shelled to death by the Kiev government fighting this war on terror inside of Ukraine. This is irrelevant because we're not going to get reported these kind of stories in the establishment media. We're going to hear a bunch of fluff. We're going to hear a bunch of scare tactics and propaganda about how we need to stand up to Russia now before it's too late. But if we open our eyes for just 1 second and we look at the powers on this planet who is expanding and taking sovereignty away from nations, is it Russia? Is Russia going out and conquering lands and destabilizing regions and implementing puppet governments? The argument can be made that happened during the time of the Soviet Union, but in the time of 2014, in this reality that we live in, we are the ones who are doing exactly what we are accusing others of doing. And again, it's all happening in our name. The Ukraine situation, violent, bloody, horrific, as many people killed, if not more killed here than in the recent incursion from Israel into the Gaza Strip. And it's not being talked about other than the light that we need to stand up to Putin and we need to stand up now. The truth of the matter is we, the people of this country, the people of the West, need to stand up to our so-called leadership who are serving the masters at Monsanto, serving the masters at corporate special interest, dying to get their claws into Ukraine and into Eastern Europe so they can continue to expand and exploit planet Earth. Stories are attached. That's all I got.